As a lover of human anatomy, I'm so excited that we're finally putting our bodies at the center of focus. Through practices such as preventive medicine, patient empowerment, and self-monitoring, down to now obsessing over every single step we take in a day. All of this works to promote a healthy connection between ourselves and our bodies. Despite all this focus on the healthy self, general public knowledge of the anatomical self is lacking. Many people don't know the location of their vital organs or even how they function. And that's because human anatomy is a difficult and time-intensive subject to learn. How many of you here made it through anatomy? Wow, good. Most of you are in medicine. I, like you, spent countless hours memorizing hundreds of structures, something no student of anatomy could do without the help of visuals. Because at the end of the day, whether you remember every little structure or not, these medical illustrations are what make studying anatomy so intriguing. In looking at them, we're actually viewing a manual of our very selves. But what happens when we're done studying? These beautiful illustrations are then shut back into the pages of a medical textbook or an app, referenced only when needed. And for the public, medical illustrations may only be encountered passively on the walls of a doctor's office. From the beginnings of modern medicine, medical illustration, and therefore anatomy, have existed primarily within the realm of medical education. Yet there's something fascinating happening right now. Artists are breaking anatomy out of the confines of the medical world and are thrusting it into the public space. For the past 9 years, I've been cataloging and sharing this rise in anatomical art with the public, all from my perspective as a medical illustrator. But before I get into showing you how artists are reclaiming anatomy today, it's important to understand how art influenced anatomy in the past. Now, anatomy is, by its very nature, a visual science, and the first anatomists to understand this lived during the Renaissance. They relied on artists to help advertise their discoveries to their peers and the public. And this drive to not only teach, but also to entertain, resulted in some of the strangest anatomical illustrations. Anatomy was caught in a struggle between science, art, and culture that lasted for over 500 years. Artists rendered dissected cadavers as alive, posed in these humorous anatomical stripteases. Imagine seeing that in your textbooks today. They also showed them as very much dead, unwillingly stripped of their skin. Disembodied limbs were often posed in literal still lifes. And some illustrations even included pop culture references. This is Clara, a famous rhinoceros that was traveling Europe in the mid-1700s, at a time when seeing a rhino was an exciting rarity. Including her in this illustration was akin to celebrity sponsorship today. The introduction of color then brought a whole new depth and clarity to anatomy that made it stunning. By the early 20th century, the perfect balance of science and art had finally been struck with the emergence of medical illustrators. They created a universal representation of anatomy, something that was neither alive nor dead, that was free from those influences of artistic culture. And this focus on no-frills accuracy was precisely for the benefit of medical education. And this is what we get to study from today. But why is it that medical illustration, both past and present, captures our imaginations? Now, we are innately tuned into the beauty of the human body. And medical illustration is still art. Nothing can elicit an emotional response, from joy to complete disgust, more than the human body. And today, artists, armed with that emotion, are grasping anatomy from the medical world and are reinvigorating it through art in the most imaginative ways. A perfect example of this is Spanish contemporary artist Fernando Vicente. He takes 19th century anatomical illustrations of the male body and envelops them in a female sensuality. The women in his paintings taunt us to view beyond their surface anatomy,